today is gonna be a little bit of a talk session, kind of synonymous with the one that we did on Friday. I think Friday was the bonus stream. This is what we did on Friday. This is the melee tier list. We locked it in. Not controversial. Well, there's a couple things in here that, you know, swung people in the other direction. But 95% of this, I am 100% on board with. The previous range tier list looks a little something like this. And unfortunately, I can't dark mode it because this isn't a presentation. But actually, I'm seeing some hot stuff up here. So this was the introduction of the very first triple S item, the heavy crossbow. We've never exceeded regular S when it comes to the tiers. And 1.6 back in January, that broke the barrier, broke the glass ceiling. So today, all that gets thrown out the window. We typically do the tier list from top to bottom. So the first thing on the list is gonna be the beginner's bow, which goes into the meme tier. I don't think there are a lot of meme items in range, so we'll probably hit everything. All the way to brand new bad seed equipment known as the blowgun. I never asked for nerfs. All I say is this item's pretty decent. And you know what? If something happens, it ain't my fault. I just made the tier list. If the devs somehow knew the stream existed, it was like, wait, what's all this stuff at the very top? That's not my fault. That means someone snitched and they showed up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. A lot of stuff has changed in 1.9 regarding ranged weapons. I think this tier list is gonna be pretty volatile, to be honest. First thing on the list, I was about to say, did I not do it? Multiple knocks bow. The triple knock, 3 notches bow. Previously a D tier. D tier meaning it's a placeholder. You take it and then you try your best to get rid of it ASAP. It's now purple only and it got buffed. Increased ammo, increased rate of fire. So you can fire it faster. It's a little better. 24 ammo, that's a lot of ammo, even though you shoot 3 at a time. And they changed the combo. Is it no longer like a triple and then the third one does like slightly more damage? Multiple knock it's a pretty generic item. Kind of like the shovel. It's not really game breaking. It doesn't really do anything that nothing else can do. You really just grab it, you hope it gets shots pierce. Maybe it does poison on hit or something like that. But you know what? It's basically a beginner's bow to me. That just happens to deal more damage. And that's not terrible. Like, that does get you through the game. But when it comes to trying to take the game to the next level, trying to make sure that you can actually get these wins, you could probably make a more cohesive build. And I would call that a placeholder. It's not situational. Situational to me is something like this has a completely like cemented build to it. So in that regard, I think this stays as a D. It has been buffed. Definitely use it. But if you want to like really destroy bosses, probably want to change to something else. Now, back in the day, we had the Kunai, the throwing knife. We had this in the S tier because of the fact that it does so much by itself. Not so much that you have to dig out affixes, things like the extendo bleed, bleeding causes poisoning, stuff like that. But it just worked out so well in version 1.8. And you figure it can only go down from there. Like, you can't make it any better. And then version 1.9 came around and they did 3 things. So people are gonna think when they see this tier list, oh, V, bleeding is so good, you gotta make that an S rank. That's like a no-brainer. But it's not just the bleed by itself. So it's three things. One, bleeding got buffed. Two, Kunai was a red-purple split. It was both brutality and tactics. So if you're playing brutality, you might find a tactics Kunai double purple on it that you don't want to take because you're not going to have that 2 red scrolls attached to it. And remember, this is a 4BC and higher tier list. Also, this is a tier list from like my perspective. So if you do have disagreements, perfectly valid. But the fact that they removed the scroll from the weapon itself is a direct buff to the kunai. That means you can't find a bad kunai. Now, the third thing that made this item totally an S rank was they also buffed the damage dealt by dots from the weapon itself. Version 1.9, they buffed it so that now, let me see if I can find, is it under dots? Affixes and mutations now affect damage dealt by dots. Note, this only affects dots applied directly by the item, not poison clouds, not fire on the ground. So yeah, the vid today, just like Souls is talking about, and as a matter of fact, this was mentioned in the comments of the video, the actual damage from the kunai is increased by whatever it says on the kunai itself. So if it's double damage, quadruple damage, plus 15%, plus to poison, plus to shock, like all of that works and makes the kunai even better. Now, I'm a little afraid of making kunai a triple S because that means that it can kill every single monster, and like, well, every take is the right take. That's kind of what triple S means to me. So for now, I think I'm gonna leave the throwing knife in the S tier because it got buffs all across the board, but I'm not ready to put it up like in the god tier. Triple S to me is the monsters aren't even allowed to play. And there are some kunai where the monster's not allowed to play, but that's chasing affixes. Now, Electric Whip, this thing was an A rank. A rank to me because almost in a hypothetical A. Because to be quite honest, I really don't have a lot of game hours in the Electric Whip. Electric Whip, everyone says it's incredible item, area of effect, crits in water, has range, has tracking to it. I don't even get Electric Whips. That's basically my luck when it comes to Dead Cells. I don't get Electric Whips, so how am I gonna rank this? It does fight every single boss in the game. It does attack every single regular enemy in the game. Kills hammers, kills all the bats they spawn. It fights slashers because you can go backward, you can get hang time, attack from the sky, you can jump over birds, attack those, you can hit a Shantae in the sky. Kills Rammus, kills shield bearers, kills oven knights. So again, we were saying in the melee tier list that one of the criteria to be a good weapon is it has to be able to kill an oven knight. And if it can't, then that's a point deduction. Electric Whip does it. It does all of it. So like it has to be an S rank. Even if I don't have a lot of time with the weapon, it's just from pen to paper. What I'm reading that this weapon does, it has to be good. There's no other way to go about it. Next on the list, Firebrand. Firebrand, previously a B tier. B for probably good. The way how we play this, we almost never play the Molotov as a main weapon. You probably can, in some biomes, you can probably find a really good Firebrand. You can get oil, that way you can ignite the oil more easily. It hits flying monsters and lets them burn out, so that's kind of nice. But for the most part, I always take it as a supplement to my other gear. We used to play fake tactics, what we call better than tactics brutality, where you pair these two together. We've done Molotov in front of the oil sword for super easy crits. I would say, like, out of the choices of secondary items, talk about Hokuto, talk about Ice Shards. There's a lot of stuff that I would probably take over the Firebrand, But that doesn't mean it's bad. A lot of stuff might be in the S tier. So like there's no sense in saying that this is an F because you only take S's. Like that's not really what we're going for here. So I think Firebrand, especially if you don't really want to play a shield and you haven't found the Hokuto Bow, if you're playing burning oil builds, I think this is probably one of the best bets. I'm not really a big fan of fire grenades unless you're running cooldown reduction. I think you just take this for those situations, but it's not quite a C tier, at least not yet. We might find a situation where this gets bumped down to a C, but I think this can go in front of almost every weapon in the game. And the Molotov works well because it's able to kill stuff that you haven't seen yet. And especially if you're running Hunter's Instinct, you'll get that cooldown reduction on the oil grenade. You can use it more often. I think it's still worth pairing them together. Let's keep it going. The Frost Blast. Previously a B tier. B because it actually got buffed to green, purple. Ice Shards got buffed in version 1.9. So you may think to yourself, why would I ever take Frost Blast in a world where Ice Shards exist? That might mean that Ice Shards are an S rank. I don't know that. The last time we did this, we actually paired all 4 of the ice items together, which was Ice Crossbow, Ice Shards, and Ice Bow. And at that time, my decision was that the Ice Bow and the Frost Blast are pretty much synonymous. They're like not really any different from each other. See, that's tough. Because a lot of these weapons that you might use the Frost Blast with, you could probably get the same gameplay from the Ice Bow. Like you basically talk about Symmetrical Blade right here. So to me, the better way to play it is to shoot the Ice Bow down the hallway. Like you don't even have to know there's monsters there. You just shoot, get a freeze, and then you walk up and you attack everything with this. Frost Blast assumes that you walk up to the monsters first, they aggro you, you then get the freeze, and then you do the gameplay. And I mean, to me, they're almost the same thing. It's just you either do it from afar or you do it up close. Frost Blast has a nice Ice Bow has a better animation than Frost Blast. Frost Blast obviously hits in an area because all the monsters are close to you. Frost Blast has the pierce built in, but it's because all the monsters are right in front of you. They might both be a C, to be quite honest. It's just a gameplay difference. It's almost pure preference. You either attack from afar, go in and do whatever you want to do, or you wait for the monsters to show up, or you like drop down into a room that you haven't touched yet, and then you do like Frost Blast in both directions. Like that's something that the Ice Bow can't do. But with Ice Bow, you wouldn't jump down in the first place. You would kind of stand back, assess the situation, and just fish for arrows. Bow and Endless Quiver, previously an F. Instant sell for the Bow and Endless Quiver. Wow. The slander going on right here. In the early stages of the game, we're talking 0 to 2 BC, maybe 3 BC. It's not that bad. You get a free crit, you get that shot's pierce, it goes through everything on the crit. The monsters don't teleport to you. So like the first hits of the combo doesn't really matter because you can just like shoot everything and it's beautiful. But once you get to 4 BC, the monsters teleport. So as you're walking around, you can't just wait for a monster to pop up in front of you because your first shot does no damage. Your second shot, think about the Oven Knight, no damage being dealt. Imagine trying to fight the crab with Bow and Endless Quiver. They did give us some buffed mutations, so running Tranquilo with Bow and Endless Quiver is pretty good. But is there any reason to really do that? Talking about Oven Knights, I also believe that the multi-knock will destroy the Oven Knight's shield and the other 2 bullets will still hurt it. So it's like, why take Bow and Endless Quiver over this? Is it the free ammo? I don't know, because I'm still in the belief that ammo isn't really an issue because A, monsters, typically bosses have phase changes. So whenever a phase change happens, you should be getting your ammo back. If you can't get your ammo back by a phase change, then your damage is probably too low, which is why this is in the D tier. A combo-centric ranged weapon is like a liability. All right, let's keep it going. Marksman Bow. Marksman Bow also got changed in 1.9. Previously, there's no way this thing was a B. It was a D, right? Yeah, previously a D tier. Marksman Bow. Very controversial right here. Chat did not like seeing this in the D tier. It was a D for me because I felt like it was one of the worst green survival weapons. But they changed it in 1.9. It's purple only. Increased the ammo count. That's all they did. That's interesting. Marksman Bow it does stuff. It's probably better than multi-knock. It does kill stuff in biomes. On bosses, you want to path correctly. That means you probably can't do the giant unless you understand the range. And then Hand of the King, obviously, it's gonna be not that great. So I have some newfound respect for the Marksman Bow. How I actually killed the Hand of the King, I have no idea. So yeah, we just want to see, like, how do we actually kill this if you're running Marksman? Okay, so I'm running support. Support is giving me damage up. I think I'm doing 26k, which, I mean, that's not breaking the bank. Let's see if we can see it up here. That's Crusher. The big damage is the Crusher. Okay. So one non-critical on Hand of the King is maybe like 1% of the Hand of the King's health bar. But, I mean, you all know, Hand of the King's a beast. Now look at this. That's a chunkster. 158. I don't remember what my affixes were. I don't think I have burning oil damage. I'm just gonna assume it's just like bonus to poison. But like, this is kind of the game if you use Marksman, is spacing. And you could say that that's like not good. Like, you could play this and not have to worry about spacing. And maybe those items are A rank. Like, I'm not saying the Marksman's an A for me. I'm just saying that if you get the spacing, the damage looks like it's an A. Maybe a B. Infantry Bow. Previously a C tier. This is basically the opposite of the Marksman Bow. This thing you can basically attack from really any range, but preferably up close. The only issue with the Infantry Bow is that this thing has 5 ammo. And the expectation is that you're running not quite a shotgun, but it's like a no-scope situation. Like, you're playing CSGO, you're right on top of an enemy, and you just press your mouse, space. I don't know what the shoot button is in CSGO. I've never played that. But I'll just assume that you press a button with the scope and stuff dies. So that's what this is supposed to do. The only issue is that on a boss, that's not a lot of critical damage on bosses. And the non-crit damage is just as bad. So you can imagine, let's take Concierge, for example. Concierge, one of the easiest bosses in the game. You have 5 shots that you can pump in 189, or you have 8 shots where you can potentially pump in 327. I'd say if you average this out, it's probably, I'd say probably Marksman Bow gets ahead. But Infantry, you have to run stuff to get your ammo back. And to be honest, they did add new things to get ammo. There's new affixes that get you ammo from Lacerating Aura, Wave of Denial. You can also run a shield. Remember, you're playing up close anyway. I think for the most part, again, this isn't gonna win the game by itself. Like, it needs a full build behind it. but I think it's a little better than a placeholder. Because this C tier stuff, this is like, I didn't just take it because I had no options. I took it because I had faith that it's the right pick. And it could possibly be. It's not a B. Again, we like to talk about Susie. We met Susie on the bus playing with the Switch. Saw me on the opposite seat and was like, yo, you're VeeDotMe. I'm running Marksman Bow. What do I do? The concept is, all right, Susie, get a shield. If you don't want to play shield, get yourself any grenade or any power that gives you your ammo back, and then just try your best. It might be busted. I can't call it. If you find an S rank, upgrade yourself. And Susie was like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm out. All right, Quick Bow. Previously in the S tier, Quick Bow, synonymous with tactics gameplay. You show anybody walking down the street, like, what would you expect to see in a ranged game, like 2D style ranged game, where you just shoot zombies? And they'll probably say Quick Bow. Like, that's basically what anyone would take. And I think it's still kinda in that slot. Quick Bow did get nerfed, and again, we're saying if the devs saw this vid on YouTube and they saw this stuff and something got nerfed, it ain't my fault. So because it did get nerfed, I think it does drop down by at least one tier. Now that's not to say that Quick Bow can't kill stuff. I just think that it's only so good right now. I feel like Quick Bow might be the only thing in the A tier because it's like, it's super good, but there's S rank stuff. And it's like, you should probably take the S rank, even though you might be the biggest Quick Bow fan on the planet. There's probably something better. So Quick Bow, why is Quick Bow not always the pick? That's kind of what the question is. You just play it exactly the same, but also they like supplemented the nerf. So Quick Bow got nerfed, Tranquilo and Support got buffed. So now these things actually do even more damage than they used to. It buffs your overall DPS by a percentage. So we've seen like bonus 30% just for being out of range, bonus 40% just by being next to a cleaver. And when you think about the way how Quick Bow fires out a lot of shots, that 40% on every single shot is real. I just think that there's better stuff that kind of does that job right now, but those are S rank. Oh no, the heavy, the shoddy, previously a triple S. I don't even have triple S up right now. Was so good that monsters weren't even allowed to play the game. What you took was shots pierce, you dropped into a hallway. Doesn't really matter what the monster is. It can be an Ovenite. It can be a toxic miasma. It can be a bird. Failed experiment. Nothing mattered when it came to the shoddy. You just press square, you hook in everything in the hallway, you pierce all of it, and everything goes. It still does that. So they did change it. They gave it a new reload mechanic. So it fires 15 shots. Actually, okay, let me back up a little bit. It's green only, first off. That is a technical nerf, but not really, because most of the safest heavy crossbow builds were survival. But then they removed your shield. And that is probably where a lot of people are gonna struggle, is that they don't have that rampart to block Hand the King and then just pump in shots for free, even though you could kind of pump in shots for free regardless, because Hand the King like was permanently stunned, kinda. So I think because of that, it is taken out of the triple S. But let's talk about the fact that you lost your shield. So the shield also gave your ammo back. That was, you know, very necessary when it came to running the shotgun, because you only have 3 shots. But they gave it a reload mechanic, so you can actually reach in, pull out the clip, pop it in, and now you have a brand new 15 bullets and your shot deals additional damage. So it's like, that's good, right? It's just extra gameplay. And maybe people would say that, okay, let's compare to these. There's zero gameplay requirement here. All I have to do is press square and stuff dies. You kind of do that with heavy crossbow too. You just lost your shield. So part of me wants to say, and I really don't have a lot of gameplay when it comes to the heavy crossbow. So this is again another hypothetical. Like the hypothetical piece to me wants to say it's an S rank. I'm just a little worried about, say for example, you're fighting Hand the King and you have to go for that reload. He does this 3-hit combo, you dodge all of it, you can't block it because you don't have the shield. After the third swing, you go for that reload, whatever the sound is, and then you go for the other shot. I don't know if it's possible to do all of that in like one fell swoop against Hand the King. I think you can do that on every other boss and it works. But I'm a little afraid of this here. So I think we're gonna leave it as an A. It's probably good enough to be an S. Like I'm sure there's shotgun experts out there, gun enthusiasts who can play this to the S rank level. I just might need a little more practice to get there. Cap. The damage dealt by the volley of bolts is now capped by the boss's damage cap. Now I wonder how they even coded that. I don't know. I feel like this I gotta see before I believe it. You basically say something like, if the player is playing heavy crossbow, then they can't exceed X damage in one button press. I would take that into the lab if I could. Now let's keep it going. Repeater crossbow. Repeater, previously an A tier. It was under the heavy crossbow. They did change it. It is now survival only. So again, the strongest version, which is the tactics, well, I don't really want to call that the strongest version. The safest version is the survival version, and that stayed intact. The other thing they changed was they gave it a volley. So what you do is you press triangle, and a volley of arrows come out, snares all the enemies in place, and then you actually press square, and you shoot through all of them. And it works. It works on every single monster that's not Hand of the King. Hand of the King is by far the worst fight in the game for the assault crossbow. So Hand of the King has a block. It has the ability to ignore ranged attacks. Oh, that root doesn't last at all. Yeah, I guess the root doesn't last very well. As you see, I just did the root. It's already over. But this is the main issue. A matter of fact, this is a screenshot. Pictures tell 1,000 words. I tried to root Hand of the King, and he actually blocked all of it. How in the world did I get hit? Blocked it again. The only time you can really get the root is if you attack from behind, where you can see it's enabled. I can get some crits. That was like 3 hits that I can get in. So that could be a problem. There's another root. I'm out of arrow. Didn't get the crits. Wolf traps, maybe. Yeah, I would say by the time you get to Hand of the King, you just need some kind of option to kill this. Would I recommend it to Susie? I would. Assuming Susie is not at Hand of the King. Assuming I just saw Susie in the grocery store and she's on like conjunctivitis and I won't see her do Hand of the King. I'll tell her to use it all day because I'm already at home by the time she's at Hand of the King. And I like to preface this a little disclaimer. Susie, of course, is not a real person. We like to use Susie as alliteration, a good name of a person who plays on the Switch. Not that there's anything wrong with playing Switch, it's just that that's the name that stuck. So Susie is the hypothetical player out there who sees me on the streets and wants some insight into build selection. That's who Susie is. We have a banger of an item here that was previously in the S tier, the Hokuto Bow. Probably one of the first weapons in the game that people really consider as an S. Even from the start, when you first get the Hokuto, it just felt right. Like the sky was the limit. And we've seen a lot of evolution in the builds for the Hokuto. We've seen Hokuto with bleeding, Hokuto with poison, and now there's the brand new, never before seen. A matter of fact, I think only half the people in Twitch chat may be aware of this, but the Hokuto with the frost bite is also a thing. So you could take ice shards. And again, people talk about ice shards being, you know, really strong. You pair that with the Hokuto, then you put frostbite behind it, and all of a sudden Hokuto activates constantly. So it's basically an additional dot. Of course, Hokuto, at least I think, may have to take it into the lab, but I'm pretty sure Hokuto has an internal cooldown to it. Like, it'll only proc maybe once every 0.5 seconds and not more than that. So I believe, and again, we'll fact check that if we have to, that the frostbite plus a poison plus a bleed will still only initiate one instance of Hokuto. Is Hokuto still an S? I would say that nothing has been nerfed about it. There's one single buff to the Hokuto, and that's the fact that the double scrolls were removed. So remember, you're playing tactics. You really want that Hokuto. I'm playing Alchemic Carbine. I want Hokuto so bad, please. You finally got it. It was double red, and you're playing purple. It's like terrible to see it, but you have to, because that's like the only Hokuto you'll ever see. That's not a thing anymore. So now every Hokuto is a possible grab. Now what makes Hokuto not a triple S? I still think that not being able to play the game is
Look at that damage.
the real thing that makes it a triple S. A lot of monsters do get popped without even having to interact with you. Like, you have this with extended bleed, or this with the shock. You just shoot Hokuto down the hallway, attack one monster, and magically like 3 monsters just explode. Is it worth being a triple S though? I want to say no. I think there's some builds out there that I think are stronger than Hokuto. They haven't shown up here yet. And I'm talking like top 3 builds. This thing back in the day was a build all by itself. Like, you may as well not even take other items. You just use the heavy crossbow, maybe a shield, and you're fine. The Hokuto that applies poison, that's probably like getting in triple S territory, but we don't really think about like starter fixes or really like digging out rare fixes in general when it comes to the triple S. So S rank is gonna be fine for that. If you take it, it's probably the right choice. All right, Ice Crossbow. Previously a C, right? A D. So the Ice Crossbow, this thing got a buff and a half. Like, they basically made it a whole new weapon. It's green only, which is a non-factor because no one used it at all. So it's not like that's a nerf or a buff. They gave it a secondary ability. So the first one almost works the same. It's a point and click ice bolt that freezes an enemy. It can pierce. It does get pierce all as well, so that is an option. And what you do is you try to freeze an enemy, and then you try to press triangle. And if you press the triangle button, it crits and gives you the ammo back. I didn't know that. That's actually kind of sick. From frozen enemies. This crit will probably kill, and it's really weird that it doesn't have the critical damage here, but this crit will kill almost every monster. What this doesn't kill is elite hammers, maybe elite slashers, really any elite that has a health bar. They might survive one hit. So it's already better than it was in the past. In the past, all I did was spam square and hope the monster bleeds to death from thaw causes bleed. Now, when it comes to the rest of the biome, my favorite version of the ice crossbow is the one that freezes nearby enemies. Yeah, just like Souls is talking about. If the ice crossbow doesn't have victims freeze nearby enemies, don't even grab it. So I like to consider... Now, I did talk about chasing affixes being bad, but this is one that is chaseable. Only because, like, if you don't get it, then something's probably wrong. Same thing with, like, Shots Pierce. It's about as common as that. And if you don't see it, then never lucky. So, in biomes, what you do is you just need to freeze something. Anything at all. You freeze it, you press triangle, and then it's a little inconsistent, but when it works, it's incredible. You'll actually pierce through, freeze the next enemy, and then like keep piercing, and they all die. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's beautiful. And when it doesn't work, all the monsters are frozen anyway. So all you have to do is press triangle again, and they all die. For the most part, you can kill every monster with 2 triangle buttons, which is already better than like this thing because it pierces automatically. That's like 2 promotions out of the D rank. Now, when it comes to bosses, as you know, might be a struggle. When we think about what bosses you want to fight, I would say you want a path to Mamatic or Conjunctivius. Either one would be fine. From there, you probably path to Timekeeper. The Giant might give you some struggles. Snorley in the chat right here has known firsthand, right here, what it means to play the Ice Crossbow versus the Giant. After that, you have Hand the King, in which you have the same issue as Repeater Crossbow. So, because of that, you probably can't have Ice Crossbow in the A tier, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, even if you were to go full ice, let's say you go Ice Armor, Ice Grenade, you can't run Heart of Ice because it has to be melee. You would have to play Instincto and try to spam other freezing abilities. I feel as though you probably won't get the damage output had you just taken like a Giant Whistle and Crusher. Like, the Crusher is almost mandatory in there because it has crowd control built in. I think that's how you win. There might be other items that show up in the B tier that might cause a demotion into the C. I feel like I just need more hours in this. Like, the hypothetical piece to me is a C, but like me thinking like way ahead, like a million years into the future, almost to another planet where Dead Cells still exists, I think it's a B. All right, the explosive crossbow, previously in the C tier. C because it was just like the shovel, didn't really do anything. They did buff it, once again, green only. You really weren't running purple versions anyway. They gave it a secondary attack, so it actually does the exact same thing it used to. A matter of fact, if you don't even want to play with the secondary, you can play it exactly how you used to the whole time. You just press square and stuff blows up. Maybe. you pray that stuff blows up. But so what they did was they gave it a new triangle button. Hit them with the crossbow. What that does is it does a cross swipe. Like you take the crossbow and you hit him across the mouth, and then what you do is a down slam, and the down slam does a big explosion that actually knocks monsters away, and the closer they are to the center, they are hit with a crit. And thematically, and this might be a hot take, thematically I think that's actually really good. We did some gameplay where, say for example, you're in prison depths. You are on the upper platform in prison depths. You see a lot of bull crap underneath you. There's a knife dancer that's invisible, a slasher, a fogger, and you can't see whatever else is down there. There might be 50 monsters down there for all you know. What you do is you prep the attack with an explosive crossbow. You do the first horizontal, and then you drop off the ledge and you do the down slam. The monsters won't react because you're still in midair, and by the time you hit the floor, you'll do the down slam, you'll kill whatever's underneath you, and then you'll knock away everything that's beside you. And I think that's actually super solid. But the issue is you have to press 2 buttons to do that. You have to remember, so brain usage, remember, the best items in the game, look at this tier list. The best items require the least amount of brain usage. So explosive crossbow requiring you to think about pressing triangle twice. More because you have to like jump down, not aggro stuff, hit it on the ground, knock everything away, and then you have to do something after that. That's the extra gameplay that is probably not necessary. We're gonna actually give this a demotion. Not because it's not sound gameplay, but because it doesn't exactly do what it should do. Almost like Bow and Endless Quiver. I don't think it's bad enough that you always sell it. I think it's a placeholder just fine, where you take it for a little while, and then once you get to the second biome, should probably think about replacing it. All right, but let's keep it going. D sounds pretty good. Nerves of Steel. Nerves of Steel, previously in the A tier? Yeah, previously in A. They actually took it off green. And in my opinion, the green version of this weapon was the version that you want to go for. It's the safest version. If you fail to do the crits, it's okay, because you can just let the crusher kill it, or you move around a little bit and you do like some work. The tactics version, not to say it was bad, not to say that you can't run the brand new buff Tranquilo, the brand new buff support. They actually gave it additional ammo now. So now this thing has 8 ammo instead of 5. Looking at the damage compared to infantry, 189 for 5, 213 for 8. I still think that I prefer Nerves of Steel over Marksman Bow. Like, if both were to drop, let's say I was in the middle of a run, I had everything I could need. I had Crusher, I had Cleaver, I had Thunder Shield, and all 3 of these items dropped. 1, 2, 3. Which one am I taking? Probably this one. Nerves of Steel, you gotta take anything. It doesn't really matter. You just have the exact same gameplay every single time. And I think that's not terrible. I think it's better than multi-knock. It's better than Bow and Endless Quiver. Is it A rank potential? No. I think I would still take Quick Bow over this, simply because the interaction with these 2 mutations that got buffed. I think I would still take Kunai and Electric Whip over it. There is gameplay required, but it's not quite, you know, big brain. You don't need 200 IQ. You don't need to be a Rick and Morty fan to use the Nerves of Steel. You just need to like have like 30 minutes of game time with it to understand the ins and outs. And after you do that, you know, you're fine. All right, so moving on, Alchemic Carbine. And we're almost done. We can see all the items on one page. I previously had this thing as an S tier, and to be perfectly honest, I feel as though I may have been bullied into putting it in the S. That's not to say that it's not a good item. I just personally don't use Alchemic Carbine almost never. As you all know, it poisons the victim. Now what I don't know, hold up, this might require some testing. How is Alchemic Carbine anything but S? Because, again, this is a VeeDotMe tier list, so I'm actually not a fan of the gameplay that I'm about to show you all. And that's not to say it's bad. So that actually kills every enemy. It kills Oven Knight. Okay. Like I said, we might have to experiment here. And again, we use the Oven Knight, we use the rats, all of that as a measurement. Wait, okay, something's wrong. 70% damage to a stunned target. Why am I killing everything? Is that right? Buff, that means you could use, say for example, yeah, so I see some 26s, and now it's dealing 15s. Wait, I almost killed it with one bullet. That's not right. I think my game's broken. Is that S tier? I don't know. I think I'm just a hater. That might be all this is I am actually an Alchemic Carbine hater. And I'm just over here to say that you all bullied me into keeping this thing in S rank. That's messed up. And it does actually kill bosses too. You can do that on Hand the King. You can do that on Timekeeper, the Giant, all of that stuff. Imagine a world where this was better than the Shoddy. That's not a world I want to live in. All right, let's move on. Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt, previously a B tier. Wow. So it was a B even when they nerfed it. And the nerf to me was they made it tactics only. I personally stopped using lightning bolts. Like as soon as they took it off green,
no. Look at that damage.
I stopped using it outright. I put it in the B tier because I understood that Wolf Trap plus the lightning was really decent. But nowadays, I have like cat hair on me. I think I got it. Nowadays, it's like I could do that with other stuff that's like better. So it is gonna get demotion. I know that much. I would rather take any of these items up here while tactics than this. Would I take these over it though? That's a big question. Or would I take this over the multi-knock? That's super tough. So like part of me wants to say, I want to actually give the lightning bolt a chance. Like if I see the lightning bolt, I would feel bad to not use it. What I think the issue is with the lightning bolt is the meta. Well, not really the meta, the monsters right now. So think about prison quarters that we just saw. We saw Oven Knights. We saw rats. We saw Inquisitors. We saw knife throwers. You take this thing into prison quarters, the first biome, and what do? You fire the bolts at a rat. One rat. All the other rats are still doing stuff. The Oven Knight. Maybe the Oven Knight blocks the first hit, blocks all the rats behind it, and actually like they bombard you. Because it can only attack one monster at a time. Now, does this do the shock? Inflict 50 DPS shock damage around the target. So remember, shock is actually new. I almost have no idea if the lightning can actually get through prison quarters. Okay, so here we go. This is a good example. You got rats. You have a rampager. I'm gonna jump down, and my square is gonna hit the first monster it sees. And that works. That, to me, doesn't work. Okay, so that is like the example that I want to give. where you have 3 rats and an oven knight, and you can only shock one of them. Even though the shot DPS is spread, the 3rd rat survived and hit me. It's almost as if, like, if it's any more than 2 creatures, it's probably a problem. From what I saw, I think it can stay in the D tier. I just think you die to rats, and I don't really know what you do against like a packed hallway. It can win the game, absolutely. If you especially play back, like maybe you run the wolf trap. Like I said, wolf trap kind of has to go with it. Maybe you run waves of denial to knock things away. Off color ice armor to make sure that that 3rd rat doesn't hit you. All right, next on the list, Fire Blast. Previously an A tier. A tier was a little controversial back then. Everyone was saying that Fire Blast V, not a very good item in general. It kind of like, it locks you in place and you can't do anything. But then they made the oil grenade red purple. They removed scrolls from items, so now you don't have to worry about finding the wrong Fire Blast. And that meta that you all saw, rats, oven knights, if you're in prison depths, you have hammers, slashers. I think the Fire Blast actually kills all of that. I don't think it's as good as what we saw from this, where it's set and forget. But I think when you make the build, you take this with the oil grenade, which is pretty easy to find, or all the new like burning oil damage stuff. You could take this with the oil on hit Hokuto. You could take that with an oily cleaver. You could run the smoke bomb. This is like boss territory. You run a smoke bomb that spreads oil when you pop out of it. I think that's actually good gameplay. Does it absolutely need oil? Not early, but I would say you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not getting oil. That's almost as if you were to go a Marksman Bow with phaser, or like you saw a phaser and you didn't take, no, you saw a phaser while you had Infantry Bow and you decided not to take it. That's like a disservice to the weapon. You're only making it more difficult for you to not run oil. And now that there's so many more oil sources in the game, things like Lacerating Aura can do oil. You can get oil from wormettes. You can get oil from almost every turret in the game. I think one of the best examples, and I actually hate this item, but the barnacle that does oil on hit combined with this thing is probably like one of the best versions to me. So I'm actually gonna keep this as an A. I actually think that the best version of the Fire Blast is the brutality version with a turret that you run support. Like, I would not play tactics like that. I mean, you can, but if you were to pair these together, I would say brutality A, tactics B. All right, next on the list, the ice shards. Now, ice shards, this is gonna be probably the absolute hardest of all the measurements. So ice shards got changed pretty drastically. What they did was they reverted the ammo. So now it has unlimited ammo. But they removed the brutality, assuming that brutal ice shards were the strongest ice shards ever created. And I would say, yeah, brutal ice shards was pretty decent. But they now made it green, purple, which has introduced new gameplay that we have never thought possible when it comes to Dead Cells. We've seen ice shards with flawless. We've seen ice shards with broadsword. We've seen ice shards with the Sadist Stiletto, oily ice shards. Really, you can put ice shards in front of almost every weapon in the game that doesn't have like an insane combo to it, and it probably works. And by work, I mean it slows the target and applies Heart of Ice, which makes Ice Shard almost a premier CDR machine, even when you're not playing green. You could play purple ice shards with either Seda Stiletto or the fans. You could get any melee purple weapon that spreads oil on hit, run Heart of Ice, and it actually works. As a matter of fact, we played Fate Survival yesterday with ice shards, crowbar, and a door, and Heart of Ice, and it actually worked. So I think that in itself was like worthy of a promotion. Now remember, they also removed the ammo count, so you can actually just spam the ice shard if you want to. You can make a whole game that's just ice shard plus oil grenade. They did nerf the crit damage, so it's not as good as it used to be, but unlimited oil bonus damage with Instincto on like Hand the King is like, that's good. And even if you aren't running oil, it still gives you the slow, which gives you a little bit of Heart of Ice on Hand the King, which lets you get that giant whistle, lets you get that that door out faster. So why would we not say it's a triple S? It affects every boss except the giant. And to say that it doesn't affect the giant means that you probably have nothing else in the build at all. Boomerang, Ice Shard, Crusher, Ice Armor. But the fact that you have nothing to kill the giant with, I don't think is the Ice Shard's fault. And even in that build, you can get a Boomerang that spreads oil. Like, you should probably just reset the Boomerang until you get oil on hit, and then the Ice Shards will kill the giant. A matter of fact, I almost don't see a non-winnable setup that involves Ice Shards. Like, that would be double Wormette against the giant. And worms can spread oil too. They just have a really hard time hitting the fist. It can't kill anything without crits. And that's to say that your ice shards are supposed to be killing stuff. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes it technically is getting the kill because the monster can't move and doesn't require extra gameplay. The only extra gameplay you had to do was put the ice shard on the same button as your other weapon, which is like your flawless, your broadsword, your tactics Seda Stiletto, your crowbar, your balance blade if you had a cursed one. I just wouldn't take it with something like Bozuki or Flint. Nothing that has like its own gameplay requirement. That's like overblown. So you're telling us that Ice Shard is better than Hokuto and Electric Whip. I would say that if I had a build and I saw an Ice Shard, the chances I could fit Ice Shard into it is probably higher than putting Electric Whip in. Electric Whip to me is straight up changing out of the build I currently have. What's the definition of triple S? That would be that it's the right choice in almost every situation, and it makes the monster unable to play the game for the most part. So that's what Heavy Crossbow did. It made the monsters unable to play. This does too in some regards. Like, take the concept that you just shoot down a hallway and the monsters can't do anything, but we do run in situations where you have to shoot and then you focus on dodging. The monsters still play, you dodge. That's all there is to it. Ice Shards, however, the monsters can't play because they're slowed for the life of them. That's basically what we mean by unable to play. There are some bosses that gain immunity to slow after a while, but by then hopefully you have the oil source and you're getting crits, and this becomes a CDR machine because you change to Instincto. But let's keep it going with the Pyro. Pyro, previously a C rank, C for situational. I have a love-hate relationship with with the Pyro. I think it's actually not very good, just to say that. The kind of fishing for monsters gameplay I feel is better done with Marksman Bow. The crit and oil gameplay, I think, is better done with Fire Blast. So what this does, and it has like a 4-hit combo to it too, where it's like, it's a couple things and then like a big ball that comes out. And it's like, I don't know if I needed to do all that. I could just throw the Molotov and do like a fate Alchemic Carbine where I just throw it and then move while it's oily. Or we just run Fire Blast and like just kill everything as it comes to me. So I actually stopped using pyrotechnics. And that's not to say that you all shouldn't use it. I personally just stopped. The kind of gameplay I can get out of this, I can get from S rank items, or I can get from A rank items to like a better degree. Calling Ice Shard Triple S is the same as calling it better than all melee and ranged weapons. Back in the day, I used to have a chart in the right-hand column, like right up here, where there was like 5 different criteria that had to be met for something to be an S rank. If it failed one of the criteria, it drops automatically. And we had to get rid of that mentality because there's some items in the game that don't kill monsters and biomes. They don't kill bosses. All they do is they make your run go from like a 50% win chance to a 75% win chance to a 90% win chance. So like old heavy crossbow to me is like, and I obviously don't have the stats to go behind it. I don't have a worm in all the players' consoles and Steam accounts that's like gathering data as well as credit card information. And all I do is I see the win rate of the heavy crossbow. I would assume that the 4BC plus win rate of heavy crossbow was extremely high. And I would say that the 4BC plus win rate of really all 5 of these items is fairly high. And any build that incorporated the Ice Shard is probably one of the higher win rates. I would say that Susie's win rate when she learned to incorporate the Ice Shard compared to Alchemic Carbine is higher. The Kunai is like really close. It's like right there to being probably as high of a win rate. But because ammo is a thing and misplays are a thing, Susie may find herself unable to continue attacking Hand of the King because she ran out of ammo. And I feel like the Ice Shards don't have that specific issue. We're talking Pyro right now. Pyro, I think if the combo was removed, say for example, it has like a charged, I don't know, because that kind of goes on the toe of this weapon, the Nerves of Steel. If you like charge up the Fireball and you like whipped it out, like ignited everything in the hallway, I think that could be cool. But that like 4-hit sling, I'm not a big fan of. If I'm gonna do that, I'd rather do the 2-button gameplay with these two. I think I'm gonna keep my heart in mind here and keep it as a D, only because there's stuff I'd rather use that I think has a higher win rate. All right, Boomerang is next. Boomerang, previously a D tier. Like, think about throwing items. We used to play better than Tactics Brutality, where we ran Kunai plus Molotov, or Kunai plus the Ice Shards. You could say that you could do the same thing. You could play better than Survival Tactics, where you run this plus a Molotov maybe, and it's like okay. But the real issue, again, is the monster meta, I think. So you throw this into prison quarters. Same scenario. You have an Oven Knight with 3 rats in front of it. You throw the boomerang. The boomerang gets stuck on the Oven Knight. What are you gonna do with all these rats? Yeah, if you pair it with something like the Ice Shard, you can kill the rats. If you pair it with something like the Molotov, you could kill the rats. But is the Boomerang really doing anything in that case? Or could I have just done that exact same gameplay with just the Firebrand? Or just the Ice Shard? So I think there's gameplay out there that involves this that spreads oil and Ice Shard. But is it the Boomerang that's doing that, or is it the Ice Shard? Can I have a better chance winning the game if I took an oily Hokuto? Absolutely. Oily Alchemic Carbine? You bet. There might be gameplay out there. Obviously, the double Boomerang's still legit. If I saw a legendary Boomerang on the floor, I would leave it. I would fish out for a second Boomerang, and I would run it. But that's probably the only time you'll catch me running Boomerangs. It's only ever good if you find either the double damage, the double Boomerang, or maybe an oily Boomerang with Ice Shards. But even then, you could probably take something better. All right, we're almost there, chat. We're on the home stretch. I think I saw 5 items. The boy, the young man's axe. Previously, a B tier, B for boy, as a matter of fact. I actually would not be surprised if I didn't even measure this item over anything besides it just being B for boy. So how do you use this weapon? Back in the day, like back in version 1.4, I think, the best boy, the best young man were the dubs. Like, you basically throw 2 boy axe, the monsters can't do anything. Remember, we talk about inability to play the game. You just spam double boy, rip him out, monster just stands there ready to uninstall the game. Of course, they nerfed it. You can't run more than 1 gentleman. You can only play 1 of them. So now, we basically just play the young man's axe as a on-demand wolf trap. I don't think it's a C for situational. Maybe. Like, it's kind of close. I think there's better builds that involve a boy than some of this stuff. Like, this is real tough because obviously this can kill monsters by itself. And these are kind of similar to the boy, but you would run boy more often in brutality builds. Like, to me, this is brutality with Heart of Ice. If you took this while tactics, I think you could do something a little better. So, like, it would be a C for tactics, B for brutality. I typically don't play boy axe as a damage source. You could go with, like, you throw the boy, rip it out, see if the monster dies. If it doesn't die, that means you keep it permanently rooted and you kill it with whatever your other weapon is. I wouldn't take boy with like a shield or Hokuto Bow. You could do boy with Alchemic Carbine while purple. You like throw the boy, shoot with the carbine, and then everything near the boy dies. Is that because of the carbine though? Possibly. Please keep it in B for perfect rectangular shape. I also said that back in the day. I used to say that this, not this, but the skill tier list had like a perfect square to it. And I was like, okay, I gotta leave it there. I would say when it comes to like build win rates, it's probably you took the boy because you had a specific build in mind, and that build can win games. Compared to like multi-knock, explosive, boomerang, lightning, war javelin. This is gonna be another banger right here, the war javelin. This one's all over the internet right now. There's people saying there's no way this thing's any more than a meme. Right here. A lot of people would say this is where it belongs. Right here. Other people would say right up here. This thing has gameplay that nothing in the game has. You throw it, it stuns enemies, you teleport to it, you do something. I don't know what that something is. Personally, I don't think it's meme. I also don't think it's triple S. It's definitely not a C. It's much better than a C. I don't think it's a B. I think it's definitely in here somewhere. The issue I have with the War Javelin is I think you could actually lose games with it. Like, talking win rate. I think you could actually have your win rate drop if you took this thing against Hand the King, for example. So, like, I would say, in terms of gameplay requirement, everyone out there, Susie, probably should consider this as an A rank item. Like, if you saw any of this stuff up here, you probably want to play it over the Javelin. But if you want to dedicate brain usage, remember, we don't like using our heads in Dead Cells. We want to just press square and things die. And that does happen with the Javelin. The only issue is when you press the button again and you like teleport on top of a slasher that wasn't quite there yet, or spikes, then you're gonna have a bad time. This is tough, and obviously anyone who's seen me play the Javelin would make me think that this is not where it should land. It should be an S, because that's the kind of gameplay that came out with the Javelin. But I would say that was me really in the zone. And that's not the average Javelin gameplay that we're gonna see. I mean, it could be. I would say 3 times out of 10, I'm probably losing. Like, this probably has a 70% win rate tied to it because I threw myself into spikes. Compared to this thing, that's probably like a 85% win rate. And then this thing, that's like 90. All right, but let's keep it moving. Once again, I do want to thank everyone for participating in the tier list discussion. Obviously, I would hate to do this by myself. Imagine me just like in the lab. That's why we need the two-way conversation here. That way I can say, hey chat, I think the Boomerang, no, I think the Magic Missile is an F. And chat can be like, V, you're trolled. I don't use magic missiles. You could say that magic missile is giga busted with the Hokuto, but that might be because of Hokuto. You might say that the Alchemic Carbine really makes this thing amazing. That might be because of the Carbine. You might say, no, V, what you do, I'm gonna teach you how to play the magic missile right now. You run magic missile with corrupted power and cleaver, combine that with the Tranquilo and the support, easy clap. Instant boss meltation going on. And then I would say I could probably do that with no weapon at all. I could probably use cleaver, corrupted power, support, and just stand there. And whatever that boss is, it's probably gonna die. So I have yet to run into a build that was only possible with magic missile. There are some situations where you're like, oh, Shantae is in the sky, blap, 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 that's a dead genie. Never have to worry about that thing again. But then, like, okay, Kunai, electric whip, ice shard, assault crossbow. I don't think Molotov can reach it. And then I think a lot of this stuff could attack it if it was far enough, but obviously if it's above you, it won't hit it. I guess birds? So birds only hit the ground when they peck and the ice goes out. If you jump, you'll actually dodge the shot from the birds. But you may say that, okay, V, you can only kill birds with the magic missile. You jump up, you Gallic gun from like the maximum height possible, dead bird. And I'm like, or every weapon I just named could do that. Javelin, knock it back. Alchemic Carbine, kill it. Quick Bow, kill it. Stun it for life. Snare it. Freeze it, shoot it. Charge it, kill it. Snare it, freeze it. All of that stuff, in my opinion, much better than using magic missile on birds. So then it's like only one enemy that actually is affected by the magic missile, and that's the librarian, the Shantae, the genie. So to me, that's an F. I gotta sell it because whatever I plan to do with the magic missile, I could have done it with every single other thing. And again, this is a VeeDotMe tier list. If you are an expert at the magic missile, please continue to use it. And please give me suggestions on that's the build to run the magic missile, guaranteed. And I'll do it. Like, I'm not never gonna play magic missile. I might never play Bow and Endless Quiver, but magic missile, like, I'm prepared to try. I'm also prepared to sell it whenever I see it. So please don't be alarmed when you see me sell it without even looking at it. All right, next on the list, the Hemorrhage. Previously an A tier. Now, a lot of people hate the Hemorrhage. A lot of people don't even have the Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is a 5 BC weapon. You get it from killing the dead magistrate, I think. And I think it's actually super good. Now, I don't take it all the time. And the reason why is that this stuff up here in version 1.9 is really good. Right now, Hemorrhage it's just pretty good. Is it B territory? I would say no. I would probably take Hemorrhage over this stuff. Tactics. So Tactics Hemorrhage I would take over Nerves of Steel, over Marksman Bow, over Explosive. Survival, I would probably take the Ice Crossbow over this just because I want to see it. And obviously over Explosive. That does kind of kill the symmetry in the tier list a little bit. Now the A rank is kind of inflated, and that's a little unfortunate. But I'm actually a big fan of the Hemorrhage. I think the perfect way to use Hemorrhage is you just throw it at whatever the monster is. It could be a rat, you throw it. It could be 3 rats. You throw it, back up a little bit, throw it again, and you just keep going. It could be 3 rats plus Oven Knight. You just keep throwing. People's issue with the weapon is it only has 5 ammo. So there might be some struggles in regards to getting back your Hemorrhage. I would say there's no regular standard biome monster that can survive 2 hits of the Hemorrhage. If you all actually throw 2 Hemorrhages at an elite and it didn't die, it should really die to the 3rd one, just to say that. If it didn't, then something is terribly wrong with your game. You might need a refund. Boss wise, however, this is another scenario where you kind of want to tailor your run in the right direction. I think the right Hemorrhage would be Mama Tick or Conjunctivius. I don't really go Concierge with weapons like this. And then I actually go to the Giant when I run Hemorrhage. And I know that might be a little like controversial, but I think Giant is much easier than Timekeeper. Timekeeper is actually not that hard with the Hemorrhage. Max range, you just keep lobbing. You can actually interrupt some of her attacks because of the stun, the breach. But typically I go the Giant, and I have like the best luck with that. And then against the Hand of the King, by then hopefully you have a Crusher. That way you can have a little better windup or a shield. So you can try to parry to get all your ammo back. And at that point, should also be able to kill a Hand of the King. Alchemic Carbine. Previously an F. But they did change it. By the way, they changed it. Did I say Alchemic Carbine? I meant Sonic Carbine. So first off, they changed the name. They changed it. It's no longer a crossbow. It's now a carbine. They increased the damage. And they increased the range. Now, damage-wise, we're looking at 167 DPS. And 167 is actually a real number in prison quarters. What I used to call the Sonic Crossbow was the ranged version of the War Javelin. And as you all know, War Javelin is in the F tier. I don't really use it very often. So you could say, well, V, if it's gonna be the War Javelin range items, Why won't you just make it an F? That's basically what it is. And you know, I feel bad sometimes. I look at items in the F tier and I feel like they're calling me. I don't know if you all get this, where it's like you're staring at F rank items and they're just knocking on your door. And you're looking out that peephole. And it's like, it's today the day I open the door to the Sonic Carbine. Typically, no. You don't open that door. You keep it locked, you turn the lights off, you close the blinds. I would say this does kill stuff in biomes, like rats. Basically, if it's two monsters on top of each other, it'll probably kill it. If it's a slasher by itself, you're probably gonna like struggle. And that's the worst part, is that versus things like a slasher, like the only monster that matters besides the Oven Knight, it's really nasty. And when you're talking about like machine gun style gameplay, I still think Quick Bow does it better. But we took this thing against Hand the King, and that was awful. Like almost as bad as the repeater crossbow was. So it's like, why bother going for this War Javelin style gameplay when I could just run this in biomes? I could just run this in biomes. I could just run this. I'm not saying don't unlock the carbine either. If you have the cells, you know, you can spend them. It's okay. Tomorrow they might say, okay, y'all want some more triple S rank items? We're gonna give Sonic Carbine tracking, so like you can stand still and like shoot up in the air. We're gonna make it arc too, so if you happen to miss a sky shot, it will arc downward and hit enemies. We'll give it infinite ammo. The longer you stand still, like almost like a balance blade. Actually, that's I think what they should do. That would be the ultimate buff to the Sonic Carbine. The longer you stand still firing shots, the stronger it gets. That to me is the ideal version of the carbine. All right, so look at this. We have Oven Knight. We have rats. A little bit of a lockdown. As you can see, I duck every time I have to shoot with this. And this is where it shines, which is the same way that War Javelin works. But when you get into the later stages of the game, where you're fighting mummies, where you're fighting slashers, hammers, that's when it becomes an issue. This thing has +3 ammo on it. Yeah, you all see how the monsters are starting to resist death ever so slightly. And you might be saying like, V, this looks like D rank gameplay at best. And you might be right. Like a placeholder would be something that, you know, it works early, and then later it's not so good. Ow. But if I run out of ammo on an elite, something's wrong. Like, think about Heavy Crossbow. Heavy Crossbow two-shots this. Think about Alchemic Carbine. Alchemic Carbine killed this in almost one hit. That's what I mean by, like, besides rats, it does nothing on, like, monsters that matter. Oh, no. See how I'm not killing now? And I know I'm skipping potential scrolls. I'm kind of doing that by design. Kind of works with True Blood, though. Let me get like a fat True Blood with like tons of rats. Yeah, like this right here. I'm willing to admit that looked kind of like D-rank gameplay. So how about we throw the devs a bone and tell them I would rather have this than Magic Missile. I'm okay with that. They're both purple only. Of course, this dies the Shantae. No, I can't do that. This is like almost the same thing. The only thing this does is it works with vampirism. Like, I would say that's all it has over this, but this can kill monsters in the sky. And it kills birds, like on the ground, the ones that peck. Slammer. Couldn't remember for the life of me. All right, Blowgun. Never measured before because we never actually did Bad Seed DLC. Deals perhaps the highest DPS at 343. It's actually stronger. Well, this has a shock DPS tied to it. It's stronger than Marksman Bow. I think the ideal way to play the Blowgun, possibly the only way to play Blowgun, is with networking. And it's actually really decent. Even though the Blowgun only has 5 bullets to it, there's a little bit of fishing you're gonna have to do. And because of that, it's automatically not a triple S. So what you need to have an effective blow dart game is you need ammo +3, you need shots pierce, and you need networking. So that to me kind of brings it down one more. So the shots pierce is obvious. You want to hit as many targets as you can. The +3 ammo is pretty obvious. You just want to be able to shoot as much as possible. And then the networking is, in my opinion, the most important part. So what you do with networking is that any single dart that doesn't kill a monster could potentially kill it if you shot a different monster. Take Arboretum, for example. Arboretum, Mushroom Boy gets thrown at you by Mushroom Daddy. You roll through to dodge the Mushroom Boy. You shoot the blow dart at the Mushroom Daddy. It gets a dart. It's facing you, so it doesn't actually crit. You turn to face the Mushroom Boy that you just ignored. You crit that one. That critical damage is going to be dealt to the daddy. If you're lucky, he'll throw another Mushroom Boy at you. You roll through that one, you crit that, and now the Mushroom Daddy should be dead. And if it's not dead, maybe it'll take one more shot. But the concept here is that each shot that didn't kill can potentially kill later, so long as you shot something else. And I'm not saying to shoot darts like indiscriminately and just like run through the biome and pray that something dies eventually. It's just the one dart, and then you kill whatever else is supposed to be killed, which is whatever's behind you. Rampager, for example, you roll through that, turn, shoot it, get the crit, kills the Rammus that's like facing you. It's that kind of stuff. That's what you want to do. Against bosses, I actually don't mind this against bosses. Again, you path correctly, you don't go Mama Tick, you don't go Concierge. Well, you can actually go Concierge. You can actually go Conjunctivious, which is super cool because you get free tentacle kills, and all you have to do is actually kill Conjunctivious herself with your owl or with your knife dance, whatever you have, possibly Wings of the Crow, to actually like load in damage. Giant, you take networking into the Giant, kill it that way. You go to Hand of the King, and this thing will actually kill Hand of the King. It's surprisingly decent at both Hand of the King and Spoiler Boss. You just need the ammo mutation by then, so you would have, what, 16 shots. And if you get to that point, it's good. Now, is that A-worthy? I think that's a lot of stuff that you need to line up, plus gameplay. So you're talking, you need affixes, you need mutations, you need gameplay, and you need to actually path to the right bosses. Compared to something like Spartan Sandals, you don't need mutations, you don't need affixes, you barely even need damage. It could probably be a level 1 Spartan Sandal, and all you need to do is the gameplay, which is kick it. That's why it's an A rank. I don't think it's situational though. I think the blow dart builds are actually better than this stuff. And I think the blow dart itself is better than this stuff. And obviously it's not an insta-sell. So if you all were to take the blow dart, Susie again, she hasn't really had a lot of experience with the blow dart. So I would tell her to watch a couple VeeDotMe videos on YouTube. Subscribe, like, watch some Resident Evil Resistance videos he posted too, because they're probably kind of funny. But you'll probably find out how to use the blow dart like that and incorporate that into your own gameplay, and you might consider it better than a D or better than a C. Maybe even the triple S. I don't know. Sky's the limit. Blowgun against Ground Shaker is the end of the run. Pathing, very important. So you go... That's why the networking piece was super good in Forgotten Sepulchre and Clock Tower. Because really what you have is a hallway full of monsters. And all you have to do is plug
Look at that damage.
blow darts into those. And eventually with networking, something in there dies. In Clock Tower, you can actually hit stuff from the back and get that crit, which is like easier than Forgotten Sepulchre, which is, it's supposed to be easier. Caverns, I would probably skip, or every single Earthshaker, and this is actually something we've done before. Every single Earthshaker, you save for your knife dance. There's not a lot of point and click destruction when it comes to tactics, but I would say your options are Crusher, for Earthshakers that is, Crusher, Owl, Knife Dance, Oil Grenade, because you can get enemies ignite when they burn with the blow dart, which is like super good with the Oil Grenade. Wings of the Crow, I wouldn't take Tornado because I don't think that really does anything against the Earthshaker. And I probably wouldn't take Lacerating Aura. Like, it's good on Hand of the King and the Giant because you get CDR, but I don't think it's enough to kill an Earthshaker before you die. Alright, so our symmetry is completely in the garbage now. This is like I just threw items at a dartboard and hope something stuck. We got triple S Ice Shards. We got, that's might be a little controversial. The S tier is the least controversial of any tier list that we've done in a long time. A tier, I would say this thing, and maybe this thing might raise some eyebrows, but that's about it. B rank, I think B rank's pretty solid, just the Molotov, some people might not quite understand. C tier, I know there's some people who really love the Marksman Bow. They're gonna not understand why it's right next to the Infantry, and I get that. And then of course, Ice is by far the definition of situational. D tier, I'm pretty sure you all might only argue about the Explosive Crossbow, but Explosive Crossbow is basically the exact item it used to be, but I could be using cool stuff. If they just make the triangle button just the explosion around you, I think it's probably better. But then like you run the risk of people just walking through biomes spamming triangle, because triangle has a knockback to it. So that's basically a wave of denial that crits and has no cooldown. So I have no idea how they're gonna make this thing a viable triangle button without completely gutting the triangle. And then the F tier, Magic Missile. I'm gonna get some hate mail tonight. I already know. It's fine. I take that hate mail and it makes me stronger. Alright, so we're locking this baby in. This is the ranged tiers. 1.9. We're saving it. We're gonna tweet, share the list on Twitter. Shout out to anyone who has your JavaScript disabled. There we go. That's what we like to see. Ranged tiers. No bully, please. 1.9. Dead cells. We're gonna send that out into the stratosphere.